Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I am bringing you 10 of my favorite Christmas wall sign DIYs that I've made in the past. We have everything from gingerbread to rustic to Grinch, so there's something for everyone. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like if you love what you see. Hey, don't forget to check out my other channel, Life with Ash. This channel is a more behind-the-scenes vlog style channel filled with mama life, mama hacks, cleaning, organizing, hauls, shopping, decluttering, decorating, and even more fun. That channel is all about real life. My hair is always in a messy bun. I live in leggings. I rarely ever wear makeup, and I'm just trying to get through this thing called life. So if you can relate to any of that, jump down to the description box below and click the link to my other channel, Life with Ash, and come hang out with me over there. All right, let's get started with these 10 Christmas DIYs. For my fourth dupe, I'm going to use this gift bag from the Dollar Tree, and I absolutely fell in love with this. Again, it's that whole red truck. If you're a red truck lover, you're going to love this DIY. But the first thing I did was take out the little handles, and then I'm going to cut the front part of this bag off. So I only need one, like the front of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. And I'm going to get as close to the edges as possible because I don't want like the fold, if that makes sense. And there are two holes because of the handles, but we're going to fix that in a little bit. So don't worry about that. All right, next I'm going to take my big paint sticks. And these are the big ones from Lowe's. And it will take one pack of 3. And I am measuring down because I need to build a frame for this. So I'm just placing my boards on and then just marking where I need it to go. Now, I did end up cutting these at an angle, so you're going to see me actually go back and kind of remeasure this. But for now, this is like a jumping off point. All right, so then I went to my miter box and saw, and like I said, cut it at an angle. So then I had to go back and actually remeasure. So what I did was the one that I had cut at an angle, I used that as a guide, and you can see I'm placing that over the bottom one, and then I'm just going to draw a slant, draw a line where to cut it, and then I'm going to flip it over to the other side and do the same thing. And then I'm going to do that going all the way around until I have all of them traced out. Then I cut all my pieces, and now I'm going to sand the edges to make them nice and smooth. This is actually my first time building a frame like this and cutting things at an angle. So I mean, that was the best method I could come up with how to make sure all my measurements were correct. And of course they were not, so I'm going to fix that too, but it is what it is. Then I'm going to clean up all my sanding stuff with my little ladybug vacuum. All right, so now I'm laying this out again. And this is where I realized there's kind of some gaps in between the corners, but that's okay. Like I said, we're going to fix that. So I'm just lining it all up. And I don't know how I did that because I measured, but that's okay. Everything can be fixed. And then once I had the frame positioned how I wanted, I am going to remove one of the pieces, add some hot glue to each end, and then I'm going to carefully stick it back in without moving the entire thing. And I'm going to do that going all the way around. I would maybe recommend using wood glue. I do not have any. I know I bought some. I can't find it. I don't know where my wood glue is, so I just decided to go with this, because as you can see, it kind of fell apart. But then, but at least some of it stuck together, so at least I had some of it glued. So, and then I realized that if I hold it together for a little bit, that it'll stick better. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to finish gluing it all back together. And like I said, I am going to apply some pressure there so that way it adheres. And it's pretty sturdy, I have to say. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Now to add more support, I did cut little pieces of craft stick and I'm going to hot glue one to each corner, connecting the two pieces. So this really helped too to keep it together. Now I'm going to add my fourth one. And there we go. All right, so now to fix the gaps, I'm going to take some Dollar Tree spackling, and I'm just simply going to rub it in the gaps in between my corners. See, that was a big gap. I don't know how I did that. I promise I measured. You watched me do it. All right, so then once my spackling was dry, I'm going to sand that down so it's nice and smooth. So we can move on to the next step. So this was a really easy way to make a frame. I looked for a picture frame at the Dollar Tree, but I couldn't find one that was big enough for that gift bag. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make it. All right, so now we're going to make this look like a window. So I'm going to use dowel rods for this. And all I did was stuck the dowel rod in the window and then measured it down. Then I'm going to use my miter shears to cut the dowel rod. Now, typically miter shears are great for this, but my blade is actually broken. So I'm doing my best here. You can see right there, my blade is broken. I need to buy a new blade. I just keep forgetting. So I'm going to cut 2 of those long ones down so they fit going up and down on the inside of my frame. And then after I break it off, I am sanding it down so it's nice and smooth. And then you're going to see that these slip right in, and they are nestled right in there. Like, they are tight. I don't think they're going anywhere. And if I had a little bit of wood kind of sticking out, I did use my little knife there to cut it off. And then those just went right in. So these are like, I guess you would call them the window panes. I think that's what they're called. And these are the ones going up and down. So now I'm trying to get it as straight as possible. Now we have to do the ones going across. So the easiest way I could think to do this was just to do 3 different pieces going across. So I already had like the piece left over from what I cut from the one going up and down. So I just went through, I measured as I went, and I just made sure that they were just, nudged right in the middle or where they needed to be. So now that one's in, and don't worry if they don't look lined up. I do go through and line them up. You can see that I'm using that other dowel rod just kind of as a guide so they're straight. And then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to cut. So you need 9 of these pieces all together, but you can't cut the same size. At least in mine, I couldn't because the 3 sections were not the same width. I hope this is all making sense. I know this kind of looks tedious, but I promise you the end result, was totally worth it. I loved the way that this one came out. Loved. All right, so like I said, I'm just going through, I'm cutting all my pieces, sanding them down, making sure that they are nice and smooth and that they wedge right in. And even if there's like a little tiny little gap, that's okay because I am going to end up hot gluing these in. So the hot glue will kind of fill that gap a little bit. So now I have, see, I couldn't just measure a bunch of those little pieces. I had to do it like piece by piece and just measure and cut, measure and cut. So this is tedious, so let's speed it up a little bit. All right, so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to finish cutting and sanding and measuring all of my pieces. So then after I got those side pieces done, I cut 2 for the middle. Then I'm going to fit those right in. Make sure that all of my pieces are straight up and down and straight across. And then, like I said, I'm going to take a little hot glue and I'm just going to dab. Now, I'm going to flip this over and you can see how wedged in those pieces are because they're not even glued in yet and they didn't fall out. So, I mean, they're pretty tight in there. But I definitely wanted to go through and hot glue these in. And you can see I'm just putting a little hot glue, I'm just dabbing it a little bit. And I am going to go through. I wasn't going to, but I felt like it needed it. I did go through and do this on the front as well. But we're going to paint this, so you aren't even going to tell. Like yeah. You're not going to be able to tell that it's hot glue. So now I'm going to go through. See, like I said, it kind of needed a little bit, the hot glue in the front. I can't wait till you guys see how this comes out. Oh my gosh. All right, so now that this window is all put together, it's time to paint it. So I'm just going to give it a good coat of Waverly chalk paint. Now, I did go through and give this 2 coats. I really wish I hadn't because when I went to sand it to distress it, it didn't really sand well because there were 2 coats. So for me personally, because I wanted to distress it, I should have just done 1 coat, but you can do whatever you want. I did make sure to get the dowel rods in there too, and then on one on the back. I flipped it on the back and painted it from behind as well. And then if any hot glue, I painted over that too, because, you know, I wanted that to blend in. So then once my window was dry, I took my sandpaper, and like I said, I did sand it. But it was kind of hard. I really wanted the natural wood to come through, but because I put 2 coats on there, which like I said, I shouldn't have, I really had to apply a lot of pressure. But I did want to pay attention to the corners of my frame. So I'm just kind of randomly, I don't know, just sanding in one spot so it really came through. Then, of course, you know, I got to take my chunky brush and dry brush some Waverly Antique Wax all over my sign, or my frame. And I am going to make sure to pay attention to the corners to make it look like they were chipped, and this is chipped wood. And I am going to do the window panes, of course. Then I'm going to sand it down to kind of help it all blend in. And then after it was distressed, it's time to add our gift bag again. But here's how I'm going to show you how I'm going to cover the holes. All I did was cut 2 little pieces of the snow part, and I just Mod Podged that behind the holes to kind of camouflage them. Now, I will say when this is standing up, you can see that there are 2 little pieces of papers behind there. But I think that, you know, I mean, oh well. It is what it is. This is just the only way I could think of to hide the holes. So then once I got my holes hidden, I went through and I hot glued this to the back of my frame. Now for this, I really had to watch the positioning because it says Happy Holidays up top, and I kept kind of cutting it off. So what I did was I laid it down, tacked it one corner down with hot glue, so that way I could flip it over and it wouldn't move. And then I used hot glue. I ran it all the way down each side and hot glued it down. So I actually got that tip from Liz Moore, and I saw her do it. I don't know if she purposely did it, like if it was intentional, but I was like, oh, that was pretty smart, because then she was able to flip it and it didn't move. All right, so next, I have this strand of lights, and they're actually ghosts, but you can't tell, and I really love the white lights in this. So I'm just going to go through and hot glue these little ghosts down all over my gift bag. And I try to cover all the area, like the whole surface, and then I'm going to hot glue the battery pack. Now, I always like to put it off to the side, and of course you want the little on-off facing up and the screw facing out. And after that, this sign is... So I'm going to use 5 of these long signs from the Dollar Tree. And as you can see, I just have a collection of them. So the first thing I'm going to do is prep them. So I'm going to take out any staples. I'm going to take out any of the 3D pieces that are on the front, any bows. I'm just going to take off basically everything. So I'm just left with the board. Next, I'm going to go ahead and lay these out. This piece was so big, as you can see, I had to do it on the floor. So I did lay these out, making sure that they were all even with each other. And then I'm going to take some duct tape and I'm going to tape them together. So normally I don't do this, but because it is such a huge piece, I just felt like it needed some more security. So I'm just going to go through and duct tape each of these pieces to each other. Now, of course, I ran out of duct tape to do the last one, so I'll get back to that in a second. But next, what I'm going to do is take popsicle sticks or craft sticks, and I'm going to go ahead and glue those over the seams where 2 signs meet to go ahead and attach them and give them more security. I am making sure to use a good amount of these craft sticks because, like I said, it is a big piece and obviously I want it to stay together. So then I found some painter's tape, so I'm just going to use that to go ahead and tape these last 2 signs together, and then I'm going to continue putting on my craft sticks. After that's done, I'm going to flip over my board, and one of the little signs had holes in it, so I'm going to go ahead and fill those in with my lightweight spackling. Then I'm going to sand down the areas where the staples were, and then also sand down the spackling, so then this is ready to paint. Once that was done, I'm going to take my nutmeg apple barrel paint, and I'm going to give this entire thing a coat of that. Now, I didn't really love the color, so what I'm going to do is mix in some Waverly Antique Wax, and I am doing this while the nutmeg color is still wet. So you're going to see at first I go very lightweight, and I'm still not loving this. So then I'm just going to cover the entire thing in the Waverly Antique Wax. Now, I made the mistake of pouring the wax right on the sign, and I had way too much, so you're going to see me take a baby wipe and wipe some off, but actually, the look that it created was pretty cool. I wanted this to look like wood anyways, and because I used a baby wipe to wipe the excess off, some of that nutmeg showed through underneath, so it gave it different tones to look like wood. So, you know, it's one of those happy accidents. Now, when I use the baby wipes to wipe the paint off, I am making sure to stay in the same direction and do nice clean lines. Then as you can see, that nutmeg paint is coming through from underneath. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I truly hope you love what you see, and hey, stick around with me for a while by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, you already know I love you, I appreciate you, and I cannot wait to share even more fun content coming up on my channel, especially in the new year. So now I'm going to go ahead and dry this a little bit so it's tacky. And then I'm just going to keep wiping. And I'm just going to kind of go between drying and wiping until I get the look that I like. Next, I'm going to take some black acrylic paint and I'm going to dry brush that all over my board. Now I'm going to switch up my brush. Sometimes I'm going to go fat brush, fat down, if that makes sense, like wider, and then I'm going to go thinner. So I'm going to switch up my brush strokes. And then I'm going to take another baby wipe and blend it all in. I did use a lot of baby wipes in this project. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my white chalk paint. And I'm very, very, very lightly brushing over that. You can see I'm barely putting any pressure on my board. But I did this just to add some dimension and just really make it look like a piece of wood. And then again, I'm going to take that baby wipe and I'm going to blend all of the paints together. Next, I'm going to take this star, and it's the Star of Bethlehem that I got on Amazon. I can leave the link in the description box below. And I'm actually going to use that on my sign. I thought it was really pretty, and it has the gold around it. And like I said, my theme this year is red and gold. So I'm going to put that off to the side. And then I cut out this decal from my Cricut, and it says, "Oh, come, let us adore him." So I'm going to kind of make this off center a little bit because I want the star to be like off in the corner, as you can see. So I had to put the star down so I knew where to put my decal. So right now I'm just laying out all of my words to make sure that I like it. And of course, in true Ashley fashion, the "come let us" is a little crooked. And I didn't realize it until after the fact, of course. But I think this sign still came out really, really neat. So I'm just going to line everything up, and then once I have it how I like, I'm going to go ahead and push it all down on my board. Now, I did forget to mention that I had a decal on this before, and I did not like it. So what I ended up doing was when I took off that decal, it started ripping up the wax, and I really liked that look. So I went throughout the whole board and just put vinyl down and ripped it up. So that's where you're seeing all those little marks come from. Then also, before I put this decal on, I did cover that area with Mod Podge because sometimes decals don't like to stick to stain like the Waverly wax. So I did cover that area with Mod Podge first. Now I'm just dry brushing over my words with that Waverly Antique Wax just to kind of dull down the white a little bit. Then I'm taking my finger and I'm just blending it all in just to make it look a little rustic, dirty, antique, all the things. Then I didn't really like the bright gold of the star, so I'm going to go ahead and brush over that too, just to kind of dull that down. And I really loved the look that this gave because it made it look really rustic and antiqued as well. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this board over, and I realized that it really was not stable. It's kind of bowing. So I'm going to take these large paint sticks and I'm going to hot glue them to the back. Now, of course, I would have done this before I hot glued my star on, but I didn't realize it until then. Then I took this whole sign out to the garage and I'm just going to drill holes randomly in this sign because we're going to go ahead and put some twinkle lights around it. Now, for some reason I lost the footage of me gluing down that star. I just glued it down with hot glue and super glue. Super easy. And then the cord, you can see I kind of slipped in between two of those signs there. And it worked out perfectly. So after I had all of my holes drilled, I'm going to go through and I'm going to sand the front so that way they're not so rough. And then I decided to highlight the holes a little bit. So I'm going to take my ivory chalk paint and the back of a paintbrush, and I'm just going to kind of highlight around where the holes are. So you'll see here, I'm just going to take the paint and just go around each one of the holes so that way it looks like stars on my board. After that, I'm going to turn over my board and I'm going to start adding my twinkle lights. So these lights I got from Menards, and it is a set of 70, although you're going to see I don't use all of them. But I am so happy that I got them because it made such a neat piece. So all I'm doing is plugging the strand of lights into the star. So that worked out perfect because then I can just plug the whole thing in my wall. So I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to poke the lights through my sign. Now, some of the holes didn't go straight through, so you're going to see that I use a skewer to go ahead and help open them up. So I'm just going to go ahead and poke all of them through. After all my lights were in my sign, this sign's complete and it's time to decorate. For dupe, I'm going to use these two black signs that I got from the Dollar Tree around Halloween time. And you can see that I already cut one of the pumpkins off of the sign. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the other one off of the other sign. Now, if you don't have these signs, the Dollar Tree has these long boards all the time. So you can just take two and paint them black. You can even leave them the same size. I just wanted to take the pumpkin off because pumpkin really doesn't go with my Christmas decor. So I'm just using my little utility knife to go ahead and score it a bunch of times, and then eventually it does break off. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and just cut off any of the excess board that was on there, like the MDF board. And then to really make it nice and smooth, I'm going to take this sanding block and sand it down. And I'm just going to continue to clean up this edge until I get it how I like. All right, after I have both boards ready to go, I'm going to flip them over. And don't mind the one on top. I actually dry brushed some paint over it because I was going to use it for a different DIY and never did. But this is going to be the back, and all I'm doing is just cutting up some of those craft sticks, and I'm just going to hot glue them to the back to glue the two pieces together. After that's over, I'm going to flip my piece over and put that off to the side. Next, I'm going to take an assortment of different tree cutouts. So I have these two wood tree cutouts. I have this little tree that came from a holder, and there was another side, but I used the tree for something else. So I'm just going to use my little blade to cut that off. And then I also have this big metal tree that I will be using as well. So after I have all my trees ready to go, I'm going to choose an assortment of scrapbook paper. So this is the scrapbook paper I'm going to use, and I did get it in a pack from Hobby Lobby. And then I'm going to use that burlap sheet that you saw as well. So right now I'm actually going to cut the star off of these wood Christmas trees because I don't want it to actually look like a decorated Christmas tree. I just want it to look like a tree. So I'm going to cut the tips off, or the star off, and then I'm going to sand it down. And then I'm just going to start tracing these trees on random scrapbook papers. So I'm just kind of going through this real fast for you because I don't think you need to watch me trace all these trees, but I just made sure to have, you know, one of the big wood cutouts on each piece, and then this one's going to be that plaid. So I just kind of mixed up all of my scrapbook pieces of paper, and now I'm going to cut them all out. So I did do a rough cut around the big wooden pieces. Now for the other piece that I got off that holder, I'm actually just going to glue that right to the board. I'm not even going to put it on the wood. The inspiration image had some adhered right to the wood, and then some were, or to the board, and then some were 3D. So you're going to see that I'm going to Mod Podge the scrapbook paper on some of the wood pieces, and then the others I'm just going to leave as paper. I hope that makes sense. So after I have all of my trees cut out of the scrapbook paper, I'm going to go ahead and add some Mod Podge to the back of these big wood trees. And then I'm going to adhere my Christmas tree right on top. And then I'm going to do the same with the other wood piece. And then I'm going to Mod Podge the bigger piece of scrapbook paper onto the metal tree. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I really hope you choose to stick with me by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, you already know I love you and I appreciate you. And I want to thank all of you for the overwhelming support I received on my last video announcing that we bought a new house. Just to update you, we are in the new house, and it's taking all my might to not just start putting up all the Christmas stuff everywhere, but I do actually need to unpack, you know, boxes and stuff. So, but after this video today, the rest of the videos until Christmas are going to be decorating videos. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. Okay, so after I have all of my scrapbook paper glued on, I'm just going to take this little nail file and I'm just going to file the, or sand the edges. That way it's a nice clean cut. Now when you do this, you want to go in the down direction so you get all the excess paper off. And I'm going to do that to those two wood pieces and that metal piece. Next, I'm going to take my blackboard and I'm going to just kind of play around with all of these different trees and kind of try to decide where I want them to go, how to lay them out. So you can see I'm overlapping them. And then I realized that those two smaller trees had to go on the actual board because they had to be Mod Podged on the board. So you can see I'm just kind of playing with it and just laying them all out. So after I had all of my trees laid out how I think I'm going to keep them, I'm going to take this burlap sheet that I got from Hobby Lobby, and it is in their scrapbooking section, and I'm just going to cut out 2 triangles to create 2 more little trees. Now I waited to do this until I had all these trees laid out so I knew, you know, proportion wise where I wanted it all to go. So once I had my triangles cut out, I'm going to go ahead and start attaching all of my trees to my board. So those 2 paper trees, I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge right down. And I am making sure that the bottom of the tree is at the bottom of the board. I'm sorry, I know it's a little cut off at the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge the other tree back on. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue the 2 wood pieces on. Now, they did end up hanging off the sides a little bit, but that's okay. That didn't really bug me. And I didn't mean to do it on purpose, but, you know, that's just kind of how it landed. So I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue the 2 wooden ones on the ends. And then to do the metal one, you know, hot glue and metal do not mix, so it wouldn't have worked. So I'm using these glue dots, and I gotta say, they worked pretty well. So I'm just putting those glue dots everywhere, and you can get these from the Dollar Tree or any craft store to go ahead and adhere that on. Okay, so I kind of thought like the triangles looked really weird without stems. So now I'm just taking some mini craft sticks and cutting them down to make a stem. And then I'm going to take a baby wipe, dip it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm going to faux stain those little stems. Then I'm just going to simply hot glue that onto the back of my little tree. And I'm going to do this for both of my little burlap trees. I really loved adding this little touch because it did add some texture to this board, and also the inspiration photo had one too. So I thought that, you know, it just gave something more for the eye to look at. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my second one, and you can see that the burlap trees, they're different sizes, so I thought that that was really neat too. And then I just thought that the burlap kind of stuck out like a sore thumb because all of the other scrapbook paper was so rustic looking and distressed. So I'm just going to go around the edges and dab some Waverly Antique Wax all over it. Okay, so the final step is I applied this decal to the top, and I did cut this out of my Cricut, but if you don't have a Cricut, you can use stencils, sticker letters, you can hand write it on there, you know, whatever you have for lettering. And it says "Joy to the World," just like the inspiration photo. So I just added it on top. Now the font I could not find to be the exact same as the inspiration photo, but I thought that this was really neat. So I'm just going to go ahead and varnish that on. And then once my wording was down, this sign was complete. I really, really loved how this came out in all the colors. DIY is so easy and so fun to make, and it only cost $1. So I picked up this pizza pan from the Dollar Tree, and I figure since this is kitchen decor, a pizza pan would fit right in. So what I did first was actually sand it down lightly just so the paint would stick better to the pan. And then I gave this 3 coats of my apple barrel nutmeg paint. Now throughout this whole video, that is the paint I will be using because I think that it is the perfect color for painting gingerbread men or women. So after my pan was dry, I just took something round and I'm tracing 2 eyes on my little gingerbread girl. And then I'm going to write or draw a little oval nose and then a little smile. Now I am looking at a picture. I am not good at freehanding faces or anything for that matter. And I am such a visual person that I did have to look at a picture while doing this. But even so, I thought it turned out so cute. But if you need a little help drawing faces or anything, just go on Pinterest, Google, anything to help you find a guide. So once I had my template all drawn on, I took some black paint and I'm going to go ahead and paint in her eyes. And you can see there I did start off with a black paint pen, but I quickly realized that was going to take me forever to color in. So I opted to go with the black paint instead. And I do end up giving the eyes 2 coats. After that, I used some crimson chalk paint from Waverly, and I'm going to paint in her little nose. So you're going to have to let me know down in the comments, do you theme your rooms in your house, or you just kind of put up any decor anywhere? I am so excited to do like a gingerbread theme. I've never had like a theme in a specific room, so I am so excited to narrow it down, and just so that way there's lots to look at in the house. All right, next I took a paint pen and I just drew on her little mouth. After that, I mixed some red and white paint to create pink. Then using this round little stencil brush, I'm just going to dab, dab, dab in some little cheeks. Then going back to the paint pen, I'm going to draw in some cute little eyelashes. Look how adorable she is. And then I'm going to take some white puffy paint and I'm going to make a little twinkle in her eye and give her eyes some detail. And then I decided to take my red puffy paint and go over her nose. Now, all of my puffy paint bottles today came from Walmart. They were super affordable. You'll notice that I did get the big bottle of the white because I figure with all the gingerbread decor, I'll probably need a big one. So, but these little smaller ones work great too. So now I'm going to take my white puffy paint and I'm going to outline the perimeter of her face to give her that gingerbread detail. Like I said, I thought this came out super cute. Of course, I'm not the first one to do this. I did see this idea somewhere. I honestly don't remember, but I just wanted to do my little take on it. So now I'm going to give her a little tongue. So I'm just using my crimson chalk paint to do that, to paint that in. All right, now it's time to make her a little bow. So I took this sparkly glitter ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, and basically I made it into one big loop, putting the ends together, and then I just squished it down. And now to tie it in the middle, I'm going to take this baker's twine and just wrap it around and tie it. And then I'm ready to glue our little bow onto the pizza pan. All right, so using some hot glue, although I would probably suggest adding some super glue in there too, I'm just going to hot glue it at an angle at the top of her little head. And look how cute she is. Now to add just a little bit more detail, I'm gonna take a kind of wild bristled brush and dip it in some white paint, and then I'm just taking something and just basically tapping on the brush. I'm going to give her some little paint dots. Now you're going to see this paint dot theme throughout the entire video because I want all of my decor to be cohesive and matching. And also I just think that it adds so much detail. So I love this little trick here. Now, this is why I say you really want a wild bristled brush, because that first one that I was using was not great. But after all my paint dots were on, she is finished. You can either display this standing up or add a hanger. It doesn't matter because it's so cute. What do you think? So to start this DIY, I have this unfinished wood cupboard door that I actually got at a local grocery store for like 99 cents. They were selling a ton of these. If you caught my thrift flip video, a couple, or in the last video, you saw that I had other cupboard doors too. So I'm going to start off by pouring some Waverly Antique Wax into the lid and dipping a baby wipe in it. And I'm going to faux stain the outside of this frame, or this door. So I am going to go around the perimeter and I am going to go on the top. And then I am going to go into some of the little grooves as well. And I am going around all the sides and the edges. Next, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and I'm going to paint the inside of this little door. After my paint is dry, I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to draw some lines to make it look like faux shiplap. So I'm going to start right in the middle and I'm going to draw a line on top and on the bottom by using a sharp pencil. And I'm then going to move my ruler over to make sure the lines go all the way across. And then I'm going to repeat this going up and down, lining up my ruler to the previously drawn line. After all my lines were drawn, I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to smudge each one of the lines to make it even more look like faux shiplap. I've used a lot of different methods to draw on shiplap lines, and this is just my favorite one by far, but you use whatever method works for you. I just really love smudging in the pencil. Next, I'm going to take my sanding sponge and I'm going to sand it down just a little bit to help everything blend in. And then I'm going to take my chunky brush and I'm going to dry brush some of that Waverly Antique wax all over the white part of this board. Then I'm going to take my sanding sponge and I'm going to sand it down one more time just to help it all blend in. After that, I'm going to put this sign off to the side and I'm going to grab one of these little truck cutouts that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to prep this by taking out the little hanger on top, and then I'm going to take some Dollar Tree spackling and I'm just going to cover in those holes because I'm not going to need them. And then I'm going to sand the top down so it's nice and smooth and ready to paint. Next, I'm going to take my apple barrel red paint and I'm just going to give my truck a good paint of that. Now I'm going to paint the truck part and the fenders, but I'm not going to go around the gate on the back or the tires and the hubcaps. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, I want to thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I really hope that you love what you see, and hey, stick around with me for a while by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, you already know I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming back. I do read all of your comments, so please keep those coming, and thank you so much for all of your support. Now for the little gate part for the bed of the truck, I'm going to go ahead and faux stain that. And to do this, I'm going to, again, take my baby wipe and dip it in the Waverly Antique wax and just rub it on. Then I did decide to lightly go in between those two wood pieces as well. That way it just fills it in. For the tires, I'm going to take some black paint and I'm going to go ahead and kind of finish off the rounded part at the top and then paint around that 3D part, which is supposed to be, I assume, the hubcap. And I'm going to do that to, obviously, both tires. Next, I'm going to take this silver metallic paint that I picked up from Walmart, and I'm going to paint the hubcaps, and then I'm going to paint right underneath the fender part above the tire too. And again, I'm going to do this on both. Next, I'm going to take a little sponge and I'm going to dip it in some white Waverly chalk paint. And I'm just going to dab, dab, dab all over my truck to make it look like snow. I really thought that adding this little touch brought this truck to life, and I really love adding the faux snow look to everything except, to be completely honest, I really hate snow. Let me know down in the comments, are you a snow person? If you live in an area that gets snow, do you like the snow, or is it just good for Christmas Day and then it should be done? Because that's what I feel like. After that, I'm going to take this little garland tie and I'm going to make it into a wreath. So I'm just going to wrap it around itself. And then I'm simply going to hot glue that to the side of my truck. And I am going to make sure that it is completely glued down. So I'm going to use a generous amount of glue. And then I'm going to take that sponge again and I'm going to faux flock my wreath. Next, I'm going to hot glue some little red berries all around my wreath. And these are just some random red berries I had left over from a Christmas pick. Next, I'm going to take one of these little trees that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take the biggest out of the two. I'm going to unscrew the bottom little base, and then I'm going to actually trim this down so that way it lays flat up against the truck. So I'm just going to give this a little haircut by using my scissors. Now I'm just kind of positioning it where I want it, and then I'm going to use, again, a generous amount of hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue my tree to the back of my truck. So that way it's kind of sticking out from the bed of the truck as well. Now you do want to apply a lot of glue and a lot of pressure so that way it sticks to the wood piece. Now I'm going to take my little ladybug and I'm going to clean up my little tree mess. And then I'm going to take this little raffia bow that I had left over from something else, and I'm going to hot glue it to the top of my wreath just to give it extra detail. Next, I'm going to take some extra cardboard and I'm going to start cutting out little squares and rectangles. Now, if this is not making sense to you, don't worry, you'll catch on in just a little bit. So after I had my little pieces cut out, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue them to the bed of the truck behind the piece of wood. Now, I did go ahead and trim down the tree where I saw that it was necessary. That way I can fit all of my little cardboard pieces on. And I'm going to have 4 altogether, although you might need more or less. Once all of my boxes were glued down, I'm going to write on one box, Mommy Stuff. Then on another box, I'm going to write Daddy Stuff. Then on the third box, I'm going to write Amelia. And then on the fourth box, I'm going to write Romeo, which is a dog's name. After that, I'm going to take my truck, and before I hot glue it down to my sign, I have to build it up a little bit because all that, you know, the trees and the boxes that I glued on there made it uneven, so I needed to even it out. So I'm just adding extra pieces of cardboard to the back, and now I'm going to hot glue this down, and I did make it so the wheels touched the bottom. Now I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to grab some wood letters to spell out home, and I'm going to paint those in the red paint from Apple Barrel. Next, I'm going to arrange all of my wording on my board, and I did cut out the will be for Christmas on my Cricut, but you can use sticker letters or stencils, whatever you have. And I'm just going to go ahead and apply my vinyl decal down. And then for the home, I'm going to go ahead and use this 3D pop-up tape, and I'm just going to cut off little strips, and I'm going to tape them down to the back of each one of these letters. Now they are self-adhesive, so I'm just using that to apply to the back of the letters. Once all my tape is applied, I'm going to hot glue these down. Now, again, they are self-adhesive. You could just remove the little paper on the back, but I just wanted it to be more secure, so I'm adding some hot glue. Next, I'm going to take that sponge again, dip it in some white paint, and I'm just going to add that little snowy effect to the top of my home word. Then I decided to go ahead and lightly brush over the black wording as well to kind of dull that down a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some snow to the top of the cardboard. I bet you can guess what our big announcement is. If you think you know, go ahead and comment a Christmas tree down below. Then to go ahead and top this off, I'm going to use my spray adhesive and spray it all over my truck, and then add some sparkly white glitter. I think that adding this glitter made this sign look so fun and so festive, and even though it has that rustic look, it has that little touch of Christmas as well. And after my glitter was all applied, I simply just used my hair dryer to go ahead and kind of just brush off the rust of the excess glitter that was on there. And after that, this little sign was complete. I absolutely love how this came out, and it's the perfect little piece for our announcement. What do you think? This next DIY is really easy. So I'm starting off with one of these fall square signs from the Dollar Tree. Now, ideally, I would have liked a rectangular sign. I just don't have any. I'm going to have to remember to get some when I see them. But this one will work too. But the Kirkland's original piece is a rectangle, I believe. But this worked out just fine. So I went ahead and pulled out the hanger on the back. And then I pulled off the staple, sanded it down. And now I'm going to apply a good layer of Mod Podge all over the back of my sign. Now, technically, this could be a reversible sign because on the other side, there was a Thanksgiving like saying or whatever, and then this is going to be Christmas. So really, you could use it for both. And now, once I have my good layer of Mod Podge on, I'm going to take this peppermint striped paper, and this came from Hobby Lobby. You're going to see me use this paper a lot this year because my stockings actually match this paper. So I'm going to make decor to match, you know, my stockings, and it's also my Christmas skirt too, tree skirt. So yeah, you're going to see me use that a lot. So after I pushed it all down, make sure it was all adhered, I went ahead and trimmed around the edges, and I'm just giving it a rough cut. If I'm not getting super, super close to the edge, that's okay. I'm just making sure that I cut the excess down, and then I'm going to take my sanding block and I'm going to sand in the down direction around all of the edges to go ahead and give it that nice clean cut. All right, so after my board was sanded down, I'm going to take this printable that I just Googled Joy to the World sheet music on Google, and I just printed it off, and now I'm going to use my paper cutter or my paper trimmer to trim it down. I don't want like the white border showing, so I need to make it a little smaller, and then I am going to go ahead and actually cut off the title of the song too. And what's really neat is the words are on the sheet music obviously too, so you'll know what song it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this down. Next, I'm going to take a piece of green cardstock and I'm going to put it in the corner, but I'm going to place it so there is a border around it. And then I'm going to apply a good layer of Mod Podge to the back of my sheet music. And then I'm going to press it down again in the corner, leaving a border around that one corner around it. And then I'm going to take my paper cutter and cut off the other sides, leaving the border. Now you're going to see in the Kirkland's piece, my design or my scrapbook paper is completely different than what you'll see, but the concept is still the same. Theirs is buffalo check, black and white buffalo check. I'm not really a black and white buffalo check girl, so that's why I'm using paper that I, actually like and will actually display in my home. So that's the beauty about doing these dupes, is you can make them, you can create them to match your style. So now I'm going to put a nice layer of Mod Podge on the back of the green paper. And then I'm going to place that in the middle of my board. And I do want to make sure that all the sides are pressed down, so I'm going to go through, or glued down. So I'm going to go through and just kind of apply Mod Podge where I need it. Then after that, I made this decal on my Cricut. It says Joy to the World. So I'm just going to simply place that in the middle of my sign. And then I'm going to scrape it on there using my little tool. And then off camera, I did add a hanger using the nautical rope. I did that as an afterthought because I thought that I should probably add a hanger to it. This is a pizza pan. I had painted it white for a different DIY, so now I'm just kind of using my steel paint from Waverly, and I'm giving it a coat of that to paint it back to its regular color of a pizza pan. So after that dries, I'm going to take a variety of different colors to go ahead and galvanize this, or give it the faux galvanized look. So I am going to use my elephant gray chalk paint, and you can see that I cut off a little piece of a kitchen sponge, and I'm dabbing it in the chalk paint and then kind of dabbing it off a little bit on my paper. Then I'm going to go through and I'm just going to dab, dab, dab all over my pizza pan. After I have that first layer of the gray chalk paint, I'm going to go ahead and move to black. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to dab it in my black, then I'm going to dab it off a little bit, and then dab it all over the pizza pan. Next, I'm going to go in with some white chalk paint and do the same thing. At this point, I'm kind of going back and forth now and mixing all three colors. That way, it really gives it that textured look. Then I'm going to go back over this with that original color, the steel chalk paint. That's the color that I actually painted the entire pan in the first place, just to kind of basically dull down all the colors and to bring it all together. Then I'm going to dab on some of my metallic acrylic paint from Walmart, and that's going to help give it that shiny look. I love faux galvanizing things. I think it is so much fun to do, but I also think that the look is so neat. So here's that metallic paint, and I'm just kind of putting it in random spots. That way it creates that shiny look. Okay, now I'm going to add some rust. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my antique Waverly wax and I'm going to dab that all the way around my pizza pan. I'm also going to dab it in some random spots in the middle of my pizza pan as well. After all my paint was dry, I took this baking sheet that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just simply going to cut out the middle section. Then I'm going to take my scraper tool, and I'm actually going to kind of scrape all of the little bumps out. So as you can see, I'm just firmly pressing on the baking sheet and pressing out all of those little bumps. Next, I'm going to take this sign that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm simply just going to use this as a template, and I'm going to trace just the top part of that bulb. Then, of course, after I have it traced out, I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut it out. Now I need to make a little hole like in the hanger part. So what I'm going to do is just put it on my cutting mat and use this little knife and simply just cut out a little hole. Then I did go ahead and take my scissors and just cut it out. Next, I'm going to do the exact same method I did with the pizza pan. I'm going to paint this with the steel paint and then use all of those colors to give this the faux galvanized look as well. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it tells YouTube that you love what you see and you want to see more. So please smash that like button. All right, after my little topper was dry, I'm going to use some hot glue and hot glue it to the top of my pizza pan. Okay, so here's where the look of this DIY kind of changes a little bit. So when I saw this decal sheet at Walmart, I knew I wanted to use that little Believe in the Magic of Christmas decal. Then I found the cutest little Santa with these vintage little reindeer, and I've been obsessed with these little vintage reindeer this season, so I wanted to use those as well. So I'm just taking off some random decals. Now these were on two different decals. The Believe in the Magic of Christmas was on one, and then the reindeer, the trees, and then all the snowflakes that I'm about to put on were on a different one. So the Pottery Barn version, you're going to see it looks very different, but the concept is the same. So basically, I'm just going through and I'm just laying out how I want all my decals to look. And then once I have it figured out, I'm going to take my Mod Podge and I'm going to put on a nice thick layer, and I'm going to Mod Podge all of my decals down on my pizza pan. Now, I am making sure to get Mod Podge underneath all the edges of my decals. That way they are nice and glued on. Then I'm basically going to pour some Mod Podge over my entire pizza pan, and I'm going to seal all of my decals down. So this DIY was super easy to make as well, and like I said, they're not going to look the exact same, but the concept is still the same. And this shows you that you can take an idea and you can completely change it to fit your style. I really love anything that says believe in the magic or anything that has to do with Christmas, so that's the decal I wanted to go with. So as you can see, I used my brayer tool to go ahead and push all these decals down as well. And then after my Mod Podge dried, this DIY is complete. The next DIY, we're going to start off with this pack of foam gingerbread men, and I'm only going to use 2 for this. And of course, the first thing I have to do was draw faces on each one, and I'm going to make one a boy and one a girl. So you're going to see that the faces pretty much are going to look the same, but their accessories are going to make the difference. So I'm just drawing on the eyes, the little red nose, and then the smile. And you're going to see all my faces look the same because that's the only thing I know how to make. so you're going to see, you know, it's kind of the same thing going on here. But like I said, I am not a good freehand drawer, and I'm a visual person. So I saw a picture of this, so this is what I'm going with. So after I had all the faces drawn on, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to add some different cute little touches just to add some more detail to my gingerbread people. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to give the girl some eyelashes, some cute little eyelashes. And then I'm going to give the boy some buttons. And for this, I just used the green and red puffy paint. And I really loved using these little festive colors, obviously. I think it made it look very Christmassy. If that's a word, I'm not sure. And then after that, I just took my white puffy paint and I went through and added those little squigglies on the arms and the legs, and then of course around his head as well. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to do the same thing on the girl gingerbread cookie. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see today, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it also tells YouTube that you love what you see and you want to see more. So smash that like button. Alright, so now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to add those squiggly little touches to my girl gingerbread cookie here. Now the great thing about this is that that pack of foam gingerbread men had several in it. So I have some left over that I can make other DIYs too. Then of course I got to add the twinkle in their eye. Now I'm going to go ahead and give my little girl some buttons. And I thought those buttons came out so cute. Now you know I have to do the paint dots. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to dip a very wild bristled brush into some white paint. Then I'm just going to use the back of my screwdriver to just hit it hard and get those paint dots on there. After that, I'm going to hot glue a little bow tie to my boy gingerbread cookie. And then I'm going to give my girl gingerbread a bow right on the top of her head. And I love the green. I think it's such a pretty green. All right, while those were drying, I am going to take a cooling rack that I bought from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take this baker's twine and hot glue the baker's twine to the little rungs, I guess, of the cooling rack. Now, I'm only doing the 2 ends and the 3 in the middle. I was going to go all the way around, but then once I kind of put it, or like kind of held it up to it, I decided that it was just a little too busy and too much. So I just decided just to do those 5 going up and down. Now, the method to doing this, because hot glue cools so quickly on metal, you want to do a couple dots at a time, put the twine down, and then keep moving, because it will dry quickly. Now, I don't know if this is honestly going to stay on because hot glue and metal typically don't mix. So I probably should have used some super glue, but only time will tell. So now I'm going to finish up by putting the baker's twine on this last one here. And then you can see that I'm bringing the ends back to the back of the cooling rack and gluing it down. Next, I'm going to take this joy ornament that I got from the Dollar Tree. And after removing the hanger, the greenery on the front, I'm going to take off this fabric. Now, I did not think that this fabric would be so tough to take off, but I'm going to show you how I did it. So first I went through and pulled off any chunks that I could with my fingers, just pulled it off. And then I took my hair dryer and kind of heated up the glue that's holding it on, and then I'm going to take my little scraper tool to scrape it off. So I kind of had to use like a variety of different methods to get this fabric off. Like I said, I just didn't think it was going to be that tough, but it was. But eventually I do get the majority of the fabric off, and then I went through and sanded it down. So now it's really smooth because we're going to paint it. So that really helped a lot. So I'm basically just sanding the rest of it off. So before we do paint this, I do want to cover those holes. So I'm just going to take that spackling and I'm going to fill in the holes, and then I'm going to sand it down once more. And now it is ready to paint. So I'm going to take my nutmeg acrylic paint once more, and I'm going to paint this entire thing, and I am going to give it several coats. I really wanted it to be completely covered. Now I am making sure to get all around the edges and like in the inside of the O and the Y. After that dried, I'm going to take my white puffy paint and I'm just going to make the little squiggly lines, highlighting each letter. So I'm going in the middle of each letter because I wanted to just make this look like a cookie, a gingerbread cookie. So next I'm going to go through and I'm just going to add little dots to the ends of the letters. And then one on the top of the O. Then I decided it needed just a little bit more color. So I'm going to take my red puffy paint and I'm basically just going to go over what I just did, but with the red. And I thought that that added the perfect amount of color. And then you know we have to add the paint dots. So I'm just going to go through and just add my dots. Next, I'm going to take that cooling rack and my 2 gingerbread people and the joy cookie. And that is exactly how I am going to attach, or how it's all laid out is how it's going to look. So all I'm going to do is just lift up some pieces and add hot glue and then just push it down. So like I said, I have it all laid out first, and then I'm just going to go through and glue all of the little hands down, the feet down, the head down. You can see I'm not going through the whole thing, but I'm just hitting little areas. Now for my joy, I wanted the O to be right over that middle little rung there. So I'm going to hot glue that down. Then I did add some hot glue underneath the J and the Y as well. Then because this was still wet, I just took my screwdriver, but you can take anything pointy and just push it down. I just didn't want to mess it up. All right, so now we're going to add a hanger. So I'm just going to take some red and white baker's twine, and I'm going to double it up. And then I'm just going to knot it through one end of my cooling rack. And I'm going to double knot it, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. Now, I don't like my hangers very long, so that's why you're going to see it's not very big. Then I'm also going to double knot this one as well. Now, I did feel like this hanger needed just one extra little touch of something, so I went ahead and hot glued some peppermints on each one. So I hot glued one to each. Now, these are real peppermints. I feel like they'd be okay to use. I did cover these with Mod Podge just so they will stay and just, I guess, keep just look like this. And I don't know, I didn't know if bugs were a factor. I'm not sure. Only time will tell. But I thought this came out so cute and it's so unique. But you tell me, what do you think? For my last DIY, I'm going to use this rectangle sign that I got from the Dollar Tree around Easter time. But of course, they have these all year round through the different seasons, so you can choose any one, it doesn't matter. And the first thing I'm going to do is take off the twine hanger. Then I'm going to flip it over, and by using my Dollar Tree spackle, I'm going to fill the holes. Then once my spackle is dry, I'm going to sand off the excess so that way it's ready for me to paint. Next, I'm going to give this board 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. Once my board was dry, I'm going to flip it so it's vertical. Then I'm going to take a ruler and put it in the middle of my board. I'm going to use a pencil to trace the line on the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to continue drawing lines going down but I am lining up the top with the line above it. After I get to the bottom, I switch and do the same thing on the top, so I have lines going all the way down my board. Then to make this look even more like shiplap, I'm going to take my finger and just rub it along my pencil lines to give it that shadowing. I have really been loving using this technique lately, and I think that this is the perfect technique to use to give it that shiplap look. And I've used a bunch of different methods, but this is definitely the one. After that, I took my chippy brush and Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm just dry brushing over my board. And I am paying attention to the edges because I wanted to highlight those, so I made them just a little bit darker. But I just distressed my entire board. Then I gave that a nice good sanding so everything, all of the paints all blended in. Next, I took this pack of metal stars. Now I do not end up using this star, but I'm just using this as a placeholder because I am planning to put a star on top of the board. And I'm going to take this garland and I am going to line it up. I'm going to have a little piece at the top and it's going to be narrow. Then I'm just going to go back and forth and just make it like a wavy shape, topsy-turvy shape, I guess. And then I'm going to give this a haircut, just like that other DIY. So I'm trimming this all down. Now, of course, ideally, I'd rather do this over a trash can, and that's going to be my advice for you, to do it over a trash can. But if not, I have my handy dandy ladybug to vacuum it all up. After it's all trimmed down, I am going to take this string of lights, the fairy lights that I got from the Dollar Tree, and this is actually the copper wire. I didn't realize that, but it actually ended up looking really cute. And what I'm going to do is use my crocodile, and this is like a big hole punch, but it punches through wood and metal and all kinds of different materials. And I'm just going to punch a hole at the top of my board. And then starting from the back of my board, I'm going to string the lights all the way through. After that, I'm going to wrap my fairy lights around my garland. I'm going to go all the way down, and then I had some left over, so I wrapped it right back up. Next, I'm going to take this berry garland and I'm going to start at the top of my green garland and I'm going to wrap that going all the way down. Next, I'm going to start hot gluing my tree to the board. So I start at the very tippy top, and then I again just kind of create that very wavy pattern. So I'm going to kind of bounce it out to the right and then to the left, but I am starting small and then getting wider as I go down. I just wanted this to be kind of whimsical and fun, and this kind of actually reminded me of the Whoville tree from How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but my daughter absolutely loves the Grinch, so I think this is going to fit right into our home decor, but I thought that this was kind of fun. So I did have to put a generous amount of hot glue down on every part, and I'm only gluing on the ends, or like at every wraparound, if that makes sense, so every curve, but I am just doing my best to hold it there until the glue kind of sets up a little bit. And I did find that that did help. So I just hot glued until the garland was all used up. And you can see how it's kind of forming the shape of a tree. And I just think this is so cute. But you can see there that I am holding it down so that way the glue can set. So after I have it all glued down, I'm going through and kind of reinforcing some parts. And then I'm going to go through and trim it up just a little bit more for any long little pieces that I missed. That way it doesn't look so crazy and it looks a little cleaner. Now for my star, I decided to use one of these little metal stars off of that USA sign from 4th of July. And I decided that I'm going to hot glue it down on top of the hole that I had to make. So I really liked that because it hid the hole, but it also let us see the top of the tree. Next, I'm going to take a jumbo craft stick and I'm going to cut a little rectangular piece so it is the trunk of our tree, and I'm going to stain this with the Waverly Antique Wax. After that, I'm going to hot glue it down to the bottom of my tree. Next, I wanted the star to match a little better with the rest of the tree, and I just felt like the silver was just not, it just didn't look right. So I decided to kind of pounce on some of that Waverly Antique Wax to make it more of a copper. Then I flipped my sign over and I added some batteries to the battery box. This does take 2 AA batteries, and I thought that when this thing lit up, it really brought it to life. Then I'm going to pull my battery box all the way down and I'm going to hot glue it to the side of my board. Now you want to make sure that you hot glue it screw side up so you can change the batteries, and I also made sure to have the little on-off button facing up as well. Then to complete this, I'm going to add a hanger. So I took some of this nautical rope, I tied a knot, and then hot glued the knot down on one of the sides of my board, and then I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to cut off the excess rope on either side. I love this piece. I think it's so different, it's whimsical, and so much fun. And like I said, when this is lit up, I really do think that it completes it and it gave it that final touch that it absolutely needed. And I just think it's so festive. What do you think? Then let's hop right into the DIYs. This first DIY is probably my favorite. We're going to start off with these 1-gallon paint sticks, and I'm going to take one of them and give it a good coat of Waverly chalk paint in white. Then I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to take these 3 signs from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to start off by taking the legs off the back of all 3, and then I'm going to give each one of these at least 3 coats of white Waverly chalk paint, and that seemed to be how much I needed to cover the wording on the front. After those were dry, I took one of the arrows and I'm going to give it 2 coats of red apple barrel paint. I'm not sure of the exact name of the paint, but you could just do any of it, or any red. Next, I'm going to take another arrow and I'm going to give it 2 coats of scallion from Waverly, and I found that this is the perfect color for the Grinch. Look at that color. It's perfect for the Grinch. Next, I'm going to go back to my paint stick and I'm going to take some painter's tape, and starting at the top, I'm going to section it off, and I am putting the tape at an angle. We're going to make like a candy cane stripe kind of design on this. So you can see that I'm also using a spacer piece of tape, and I'm just going to go all the way down until I have it all sectioned off. So once it's all taped down, I'm going to take that red paint again and give the white sections 2 coats of that red paint. And I did make sure to paint the sides of the paint stick as well. All right, next I'm going to take a small piece of foam board and I'm going to trace this bucket. Now you can use a round wood piece or anything for this next step. I just didn't have it, so I kind of just had to make my own. But I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. I just need a basic circle. So like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out real quick. Then once that's cut out, I'm going to take this gold scrapbook paper, and it actually is peel and stick. I got it into a pack from Target a couple years ago. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my circle on the sticky part of the gold scrapbook paper, and then I'm going to cut around it to go ahead and make a gold circle. Now to get the edges of my circle nice and clean, I am going to go ahead and take my sandpaper and I'm going to sand off the rest of the scrapbook paper. One thing I should have known was not to use a green marker because it actually showed through just a little bit, but that's okay. All right, next, after my paint stick was dry, it's time to go ahead and peel off all of the painter's tape. And I left this in here because, you know, us crafters love to peel off painter's tape because it is oh so satisfying. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the blue tape, and then I'm just going to take a small paintbrush and dip it in some white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm just going to kind of go through and clean up any of maybe the bleed through that happened. Not a lot, I didn't have a lot, but I just wanted to kind of fix a little part of it, or little parts of it that was obvious. And then after that, I'm going to take my gold circle and I'm going to place it at the top, and I did put it where the handle is, and then I'm going to lay out all of my arrows. Now I'm not going to glue down the arrows just yet. I just did it for sizing or for positioning, but I am going to go ahead and glue down my little foam ball at the top, or circle. So I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue that down. Next, I'm going to use these phrases that I cut from my Cricut. Now, if you don't have a cutting machine, you can use rub-on transfers, you can use stickers, you can use stencils, anything. You can handwrite this. But I did Grinch's layer on one, Whoville on the other, and then I did Mount Crumpet on the third one. So this is not a new idea, but I really wanted to have a directional sign in my bathroom, so I thought that this would be super cute. So after all of my words were on the arrows, I went ahead and laid them back out again. And now I'm going to go ahead and hot glue each one of them down. And I am kind of hot gluing them at an angle, so they're kind of like topsy-turvy, just kind of how you would expect Dr. Seuss to be and Whoville, and they're just kind of at an angle. So next I'm going to take my white puffy paint, and I just felt like I wanted to dress these up a little bit. So first I'm going to start off with the circle, and I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of puffy paint the top of the circle to kind of make it look like snowfall, and I'm going to do some drips around the top as well. And then I'm going to do the same on each one of the arrows. I'm going to just put some puffy paint along the top and kind of down the sides and the corners as well, which you'll see here in a second. But I really, really loved the touch that this added. I just thought that this made it look complete. And then after that, this sign is done. Now, I should have put a hanger on before I did this part, but so I had to wait for this to completely dry, and I just took a piece of twine and just hot glued it to the back of the ball, so that way I can actually hang this on the wall. I was going to do a standing sign, but I really have no room for it in my bathroom, so I'm going to go ahead and hang this on the wall. I did also add some snow to the bottom, and that was it. Like I said, this is my favorite, and I love how it came out. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video of all of my wall signs from Christmases past. You're going to have to let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite DIY from today. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on those notifications for even more inspiration this season. Well, until I see you again, I'll craft with you soon. Bye!